I stood in front of the gilt-framed mirror, watching my sister Victoria twirl in her designer wedding dress while our mother dabbed tears from her eyes. The dress probably cost more than my entire farm's quarterly revenue, but who was counting? Not them, certainly. My name is Paris, and I was the family's greatest disappointment. Also, they never tired of reminding me. I adjusted my simple blue dress, painfully aware of my calloused hands and the hint of dirt beneath my nails that no amount of scrubbing could remove. "Oh, darling, you look absolutely perfect," our mother Natalie gushed, smoothing Victoria's veil. "Raphael's family will be so impressed. A proper society wedding, just as we always dreamed." Victoria beamed. "Unlike some people's barn ceremony," she said, shooting me a pointed look through the mirror. I bit my tongue, thinking of my wedding to Quinton 2 years ago. Simple, yes. In a restored barn, yes. But filled with more genuine love than this entire country club could hold. "Paris, dear," my mother turned to me with that familiar plastic smile. "Do try to keep your rural charm subtle during the photos, and maybe we can do something about those hands of yours. I have some concealer." "My hands are fine, Mother." "They look like a farm hands," Victoria sniffed. "I am a farmer." The door opened and my father Damien poked his head in. "They're ready for us. Victoria, you look stunning." His eyes skipped over me like I was part of the wallpaper. The ceremony was exactly what you'd expect. Excessive flowers, string quartet, champagne flowing like water. I sat in the back row with Quinton, who squeezed my hand throughout. Raphael, the high-flying CEO, looked more like he was closing a business deal than getting married. At the reception, I made the mistake of thinking I could quietly enjoy my meal. Mother had other plans. "Paris," she announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "since you're so experienced with manual labour, perhaps you could help the staff clean the stables afterward. They're part of the venue's historic charm, you know." Laughter rippled through the gathered guests. Old money, new money, all of them looking at me like I was some quaint curiosity. "Actually," Quinton spoke up, his voice calm but firm, "we need to head back early. The new irrigation system is being installed tomorrow. More titters." Victoria, holding court at the head table, stage whispered to Raphael, "God, can you imagine? Playing in the dirt when you could be living like this?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the marble floor. "Congratulations, Victoria. I hope you'll be very happy." The words tasted like ash in my mouth. "Leaving so soon?" Mother called out. "But Victoria hasn't even thrown the bouquet." "I have real flowers to tend to," I replied, heading for the exit with Quinton close behind. In our truck driving away from the country club, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding all day. Quinton reached over and took my hand, my rough, capable, dirt-stained hand. "You okay?" he asked. I looked out at the setting sun painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. In a few hours we'd be home, where the air smelled of earth and possibility instead of expensive perfume and judgment. "You know what?" I said, a strange calm settling over me. "I am, because this is the last time. The last time. The last time I let them make me feel small. The last time I apologize for who I am or what we do." I turned to face him. "I'm done begging for their approval." He smiled, that same smile that had made me fall in love with him. "Good. Because what we're building, it's bigger than they could ever understand." I nodded, thinking of our plans, the grant application we'd submitted, the innovations we were developing. They saw dirt under my nails. They didn't see the revolution we were quietly growing. "Let them have their crystal champagne flutes and country club memberships," I said. "We're playing a longer game." As we drove further from the venue, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Sorry you had to leave early. Must be exhausting playing farmer all day. Don't worry, when you finally give up the act, I'm sure Raphael can find Quinton a real job." I turned off my phone without replying. Let them think what they wanted. They had no idea what was coming. "Home?" Quinton asked as we approached the highway junction. "Home," I agreed. "We've got work to do." And we did. The kind of work that would eventually make them all eat their words, served cold on a silver platter they couldn't afford anymore. Dawn broke over our land as I walked the eastern fields with Emerson, our agricultural scientist turned business partner. The morning dew caught the sunlight, making the innovative irrigation systems we'd installed glitter like diamonds, real ones, not like the gaudy rocks Victoria had flashed at her wedding 2 months ago. "These soil readings are incredible," Emerson said, checking her tablet. "The regenerative techniques are working better than projected. We're seeing a 40% increase in nutrient density." I crouched down, running my fingers through the rich, dark earth. "Show me the numbers for the Western Quadrant." "Paris!" Kendall, my assistant, came jogging across the field, tablet in hand. "The State Agricultural Council is on the line. It's about the grant application." My heart skipped. We'd spent months preparing that proposal, detailing our plans for sustainable farming innovation. This could change everything. I took the call in our newly renovated barn office. Quinton stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder, as we listened to the council representative. $300,000, she said. "The committee was particularly impressed with your integration of traditional farming methods with cutting-edge technology." After the call, Quinton lifted me off my feet in a bear hug. "We did it!" "We did it!" I echoed, still stunned. "We can finally expand the regenerative program to the full valley." Kendall burst in with champagne, the cheap kind, but it tasted better than anything served at Victoria's wedding. As we celebrated, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Saw your rustic little farm on Google Earth. Must be exhausting playing in the dirt all day. Still time to get a real job." I showed it to Quinton, who laughed. "Should we tell them about the grant?" "No," I said, deleting the message. "Let them think what they want." Later that afternoon, I walked the property with Emerson, planning the expansion. "We'll need to hire more staff," she said, marking areas on our map. "And that abandoned Thompson estate next door would be perfect for the new greenhouse complex." "The asking price is steep," I admitted. "But with the grant money as leverage, we could secure the financing." "Paris, this could be huge." My phone rang. Mother. I sent it to voicemail, like I had dozens of times since the wedding. She'd left messages about charity galas, country club events, things that seemed from another world now. That evening, Quinton and I sat on our porch, watching the sunset paint the sky. He handed me a beer. Local craft brew, nothing fancy. "Remember when your mother said this place would kill us?" he asked. I laughed. "Right after we bought it. That wasteland will drain every penny you have," I mimicked her voice. "If she could see the soil samples now." "She wouldn't understand them anyway." I took a sip of beer. "Did you see the latest article about Raphael's company? Something about aggressive expansion and risky investments?" Quinton nodded. Victoria's castle might not be built on such solid ground after all. The next morning, Kendall brought more news. "The Thompson estate? They're desperate to sell. Asking price just dropped 20%. I spent the day in meetings with our lawyer and the bank. By sunset, we had a deal in principle. The land would be ours within months. That night, another ignored call from Mother. Her voicemail was different this time. "Paris, darling, I hope you're well. I was just wondering if you've heard from Victoria lately. She's been difficult to reach, and there are some concerning rumours about Raphael's business. Call me back, dear." I played it for Quinton as we lay in bed. "Sounds like trouble in paradise," he said. "Maybe they should have invested in dirt instead of derivatives," I replied, thinking of our expanding empire of fertile soil and sustainable innovation. A text from Emerson lit up my phone. State Agricultural Department wants to feature us in their annual report. Apparently, we're becoming the model for next-gen farming. I showed Quinton the message. Should we tell them? He asked again. No, I said, setting my phone aside. Let them figure it out on their own. Outside, the irrigation systems hummed softly, nurturing our growing empire. In the distance, the lights of the Thompson estate, soon to be ours, twinkled like fallen stars. You know what the best revenge is? I asked Quinton. What's that? Building something so big they can't ignore it, something so real it makes their whole world look fake. He pulled me closer. Then let's build it bigger. I fell asleep thinking of soil samples and bank statements, of ignored calls and deleted texts, of a future growing right under my family's upturned noses. They thought I was playing farmer. They had no idea I was becoming something much more powerful, the owner of their future. The morning headlines hit like thunderclaps. Major tech firm under federal investigation. I didn't need to read further to know it was Raphael's company. Kendall burst into my office, tablet in hand, her eyes wide. Paris, you need to see this. Raphael's company is imploding. The SEC is investigating them for fraud, and their stock just dropped 60%. I leaned back in my chair, remembering Victoria's smug face at her wedding. Any word from my sister? Nothing direct, but social media's buzzing. They've cancelled their membership at the country club, and there are rumours they're selling their vacation homes. My phone rang. Mother, again. This time I answered. Paris, darling, how lovely to catch you. I was just thinking about you. Were you, Mother? Or did you see the news about Raphael's company? A pause. Well, yes, there are some unfortunate rumours, but Victoria assures me it's all a misunderstanding. Actually, I was calling about your father's birthday next month. We're having a small gathering. Small gathering? I cut in. Like the small gathering last year with 300 people at the yacht club. Well, we're scaling back this year, being prudent. But surely you and Quinton could make an appearance. Victoria could use the family support right now. I looked out my office window at our expanding operation. Workers were installing solar panels on the new greenhouse complex, the former Thompson estate, now ours. I'm afraid we're quite busy, I said. The governor is visiting next week to see our sustainable agriculture program. The governor? Mother's voice cracked slightly. Yes, turns out playing in the dirt can be quite important. Speaking of which, I have a meeting. Give my best to Victoria. I hung up and walked outside, where Emerson was directing the installation team. How's it looking? Perfect timing, she said. With these panels, we'll be energy independent by winter. Did you see the news about Raphael? Just did. Kendall says they're selling assets. Including that ridiculous estate on the North Ridge, she grinned. The one with the marble fountains. I raised an eyebrow. Really? How interesting. That afternoon, I met with our lawyer and bank representative. Within hours, we had a preliminary offer on Victoria and Raphael's estate, through a shell company, of course. They wouldn't know we were the buyers. Quinton found me later in the experimental greenhouse. You're plotting something, he said, watching me examine the new hydroponic systems. The Northridge property would be perfect for our vertical farming project, I replied innocently. He laughed. And the fact that it's your sister's house has nothing to do with it? Former house, I corrected. According to Kendall's sources, Raphael hasn't been home in 3 days. No one knows where he is. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Just a temporary setback. Raphael says everything will be fine. Not that you'd understand business at this level. I showed it to Quinton. Should we tell her we're about to own her house? Let her figure it out herself, he said, echoing my words from months ago. The next day, Kendall rushed in during my meeting with the State Agricultural Board. Raphael's gone, she whispered. private jet to a non-extradition country, left Victoria behind. I excused myself from the meeting and called Mother. "Oh, Paris," she answered, her voice shaky. "Have you heard? It's all a terrible mistake. Raphael's just on a business trip." "To a country with no extradition treaty?" "Mother, stop lying to yourself. Where's Victoria?" "She's managing. The bank has frozen their accounts, but we're helping where we can. Though your father's investments haven't been performing well lately." I could hear the fear beneath her practiced society voice. Their world was crumbling, and they knew it. That evening, I sat with Quinton on our porch, watching the sunset paint the sky over our thriving fields. Our empire had grown while theirs collapsed. "The offer on Victoria's house was accepted," I said. "We own the North Ridge now." "And the South Valley," he added, "and the East Quarter." "We own most of the county," I realised aloud. "Everything they used to look down on." My phone lit up with another call from Mother. This time, her voicemail was desperate. "Paris, please, things are difficult. Victoria needs somewhere to stay just for a while. I know we've had our differences, but we're family." I deleted the message and looked out over our land, our real, solid, growing empire built on innovation and actual work, not paper wealth and empty status. "They're going to come here," I told Quinton, "when they have nowhere else to go." He took my hand. "What will you do when they do?" I smiled, thinking of all those years of judgment and mockery. "I'll show them exactly what playing farmer really means." The sun set on our kingdom of dirt and innovation, while somewhere in the darkness, my family's glass castle finally shattered. The security system pinged at 6:43 a.m. I watched through the cameras as a luxury SUV, dusty and road-worn, pulled up to our main gates. Even through the grainy footage, I recognised them: Victoria, Mother, and Father, looking decidedly less polished than the last time I'd seen them. "They're here," I told Quinton, who was making coffee in our kitchen. "Earlier than I expected," he said. "Want me to handle it?" "No, I need to do this." I took my time walking to the gates. The morning fog hung low over our fields, making the estate look almost mystical. Through the wrought iron bars, I could see Victoria's designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect hair unkempt. Mother's makeup couldn't hide her exhaustion. Father looked smaller somehow, diminished. "Paris," Mother called out, trying to maintain her usual commanding tone. "We've been trying to reach you." "I know." I stood before the gate, not reaching for the control panel. "Why are you here?" Victoria stepped forward. We need help." The words seemed to physically pain her. "Raphael's gone. The accounts are frozen. The banks took everything." "Everything except what you put in Mother and Father's names?" I asked. Mother flinched. "That's also gone. Your father's investments." "Were tied to Raphael's company," I finished. "I know. I read the financial news." "Please," Father spoke for the first time, his voice rough. "We didn't know where else to go." I looked at their car, packed with expensive luggage. "No friends from the country club offered to take you in?" "They're not." Victoria swallowed hard. "They're not returning our calls." "Funny how that works," I said, remembering all the parties I hadn't been invited to, all the calls they hadn't returned when I was building my little farm. "Paris, please." Mother stepped closer to the gate. "We're family." "Family?" I laughed. "Now we're family? Not when you mocked my wedding. Not when you called my work beneath you. Not when you—" "Paris." Quinton's voice behind me was soft but firm. He'd followed me out, carrying 2 travel mugs of coffee. He handed me one. "It's your call." I took a long sip, letting them wait. Through the gate, I could see Victoria shivering in her thin designer jacket. The morning was cool, and they clearly weren't dressed for rural life. Finally, I pressed the gate control. "Drive up to the house. The guest cottage on the east side will be opened for you." "The cottage?" Mother's voice rose slightly. But surely, the cottage, I repeated firmly, or the highway, your choice. They drove through slowly, taking in the scope of the property. I saw their eyes widen at the solar arrays, the state-of-the-art greenhouses, the fleet of agricultural drones charging in their stations. This wasn't the humble farm they'd imagined. I met them at the cottage, a comfortable but modest 3-bedroom house we usually used for visiting researchers. Kendall was already there, having prepared the basics. Clean linens, toiletries, some simple groceries. This is... Mother looked around the simple furnishings, clearly struggling to be diplomatic. Cosy. It's more than you deserve, I said quietly. Kendall will show you around and explain the rules. Rules? Victoria's head snapped up. What rules? You want to stay here? You work? Everyone on this property contributes. I turned to Kendall. Give them the orientation packet. Work assignments start tomorrow. Work? Mother looked horrified. But your father's health will be evaluated by our medical team. If he's cleared for light duty, he works. If not, we'll make other arrangements. I headed for the door. Welcome to reality. Paris, Victoria called out as I reached the threshold. This isn't what we expected. I turned back. No. What did you expect, Victoria? The same little dirt farm you used to laugh about? The one you said would kill us? She looked down at her manicured hands, hands that had never known real work. She started. You don't what? Don't understand how your little sister ended up owning the largest agricultural innovation centre in the state. Don't understand how I bought your foreclosed mansion. Don't understand how everything you thought was beneath you turned out to be worth more than your entire world. Silence fell heavy in the cottage. Even Mother seemed at a loss for words. Get some rest, I said finally. Tomorrow you learn what real work looks like. Outside, Quinton waited for me. You okay? I looked back at the cottage, then out at our thriving empire. You know what's funny? I thought seeing them like this would feel better. And it doesn't. No, I said, starting toward our main house. It feels exactly right. Behind us, through the cottage window, I could see my family standing lost in their new reality, while around them my kingdom of dirt continued to grow. You want me to do what? Victoria stared at the work boots and overalls Kendall had laid out for her. Greenhouse maintenance, Kendall repeated patiently. The hydroponic systems need daily attention. Emerson will train you. It was their first morning as workers on my estate. Mother stood nearby, already dressed in her assigned uniform, looking like she'd swallowed something sour. This is ridiculous, Victoria snapped. Paris can't seriously expect us to... We can and I do, I said, entering the cottage's small kitchen. Everyone works here, even me. But we're not. We've never... Mother struggled to find words that wouldn't sound entitled. Never worked a day in your lives? I finished for her. I know, that changes today. Father appeared from his room, already dressed in his work clothes. The medical team had cleared him for light duties, and something in his expression seemed almost relieved to have a purpose. Where do I start? He asked quietly. I nodded to Kendall, who led him out to help with equipment maintenance. At least one of them was adapting. This is cruel, Victoria hissed once he'd gone. You're enjoying this. Enjoying what? Giving you shelter, food, a chance to earn your keep? That's more than Raphael gave you when he ran. The barb hit home. Victoria flinched, then grabbed the overalls and stormed off to change. Later that morning, I found Mother struggling with basic data entry in the monitoring station. Her perfectly manicured nails kept hitting the wrong keys. Need help? I asked. This system is complicated, she admitted. It tracks soil conditions, weather patterns, and crop yields across the entire valley. I pulled up a chair. Including the land your country club used to sit on. She looked at me sharply. You bought that too. along with most of the properties you used to visit for your charity galas. I showed her how to enter the data correctly. Funny how paper wealth disappears, but land endures. By afternoon, Victoria had managed to knock over 2 hydroponic towers, causing Emerson to send her back to the cottage early. I found her on the porch, crying. "Giving up already?" I asked, sitting beside her. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Why not just turn us away?" "Because you need to understand." "Huh? Understand what?" "What it feels like to build something real, to create value instead of just spending it." She wiped her eyes. "I get it, okay? You won. You're successful. We were wrong about you. Happy now?" "This isn't about being happy, Victoria. This is about consequences." That evening, I held a staff meeting in the main house. Through the window, I could see my family trudging back to their cottage, dirty and exhausted. "How are they doing?" Quinton asked Kendall. "Your father's actually decent with machinery," she reported. "Your mother's trying in her way. Victoria's challenging." "She'll learn," I said, "or she'll leave." Later that night, unable to sleep, I walked the grounds. To my surprise, I found Father sitting on the cottage porch, staring at the stars. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. "Too many thoughts?" He gestured to the land around us. "You've built something remarkable here, Paris." "No thanks to any of you," he nodded slowly. "I know, I was wrong about many things." "Save it," I said, turning to leave. "I don't need your approval anymore." "I'm not offering approval," he called after me. "Just admitting failure." I paused but didn't turn back. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's another working day." Returning to the main house, I found Quinton in our kitchen. "Checking on them?" he asked. "Making sure Victoria isn't trying to contact her rich friends again." "Actually," Kendall appeared in the doorway with her tablet, "she did try. I monitored her phone activity. She's been reaching out to lawyers, looking for ways to claim part of the estate." I laughed without humour. Of course she has. Old habits die hard. "Want me to shut down her phone access?" Kendall asked. "No," I decided. "Let her try. Every lawyer in the region knows who owns this valley now. Let her learn that lesson too." Through the window, I could see the lights go out in the cottage one by one. My family, who once lived in mansions and looked down on my choices, now slept in a workers' quarters on my land. "You know," Quinton said, wrapping his arms around me from behind, "revenge doesn't always taste as sweet as we expect." "This isn't revenge," I replied, watching the moonlight play over our fields. "This is education. They wanted to be part of my success. Well, now they get to see exactly how it was built, one handful of dirt at a time." The confrontation I'd been expecting finally came 3 weeks into their stay. Victoria stormed into my office, waving her phone, face flushed with rage. "You bought my house," she screamed. "You actually bought my house." I looked up calmly from my laptop. "The Northridge property? Yes, I did. It's being converted into a vertical farming research centre." "How dare you? That was my home." Was being the operative word. "The bank owned it, Victoria. I just made the best offer." She slammed her hands on my desk. "Is this what you wanted? To humiliate us? To make us work like servants on your precious farm while you live in your big house?" "Actually," I stood slowly, "what I wanted was to be accepted by my family, to have my work respected, to not be mocked at every holiday, every wedding, every family gathering. But we don't always get what we want, do we?" "We were right about you," she spat. "You're nothing but a vindictive—" "Careful," I cut her off. "Remember who provides your bed and meals now." The door opened and Mother rushed in, presumably having heard the shouting. "Girls, please, we're family." "Family?" I laughed. "Now we're family. Where was this family spirit when you told everyone I was throwing my life away? When you excluded Quinton from family photos? When you were embarrassing us," Victoria shrieked, playing farmer when you could have had so much more. More what? More like you, a trophy wife to a criminal who abandoned you, or like mother and father who lost everything because they were too proud to see the truth. That's enough! Father's voice cracked through the air. He stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on the frame. His face was ashen, sweat beading on his forehead. Father? Mother rushed to him as his knees buckled. I was already on the phone. Medical team to my office now. Possible cardiac event. Everything moved quickly after that. Our on-site medical team arrived within minutes. They stabilized Father and called an ambulance. As they loaded him in, Mother turned to me with tears in her eyes. Paris, please, the medical bills. I held up my hand. He's covered under our company's health plan, as are all our workers. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Later that night, I sat with Quinton in the hospital waiting room. Victoria and Mother had finally fallen asleep in the uncomfortable chairs. The doctor says it was stress-induced, I told him quietly, years of pressure finally catching up. Are you okay? I watched my mother's head bob as she dozed. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. I wanted them to understand what they did to me. I didn't want this. You're not responsible for his health, Paris. But aren't I? I brought them here, made them work, pushed them to what? Face reality? They did this to themselves. You just refused to rescue them on their terms. A doctor appeared with an update. Father was stable but would need rest and rehabilitation. No work for at least 6 weeks. He can stay in the cottage, I told Mother when she started worrying about arrangements. We'll adjust his duties when he's cleared to return. A return? Victoria had woken up. You still expect him to work after this? Everyone works, I repeated my mantra, but it felt hollow now. He could have died, she shouted, drawing looks from the hospital staff. Lower your voice, I warned. Or what? You'll throw us out. Prove once and for all that you're exactly what we always said you were. I stood up slowly. And what exactly did you always say I was, Victoria? A bitter, vengeful person who chose dirt over family. No, I stepped closer to her. I chose integrity over pretense, reality over illusion, and look which one survived. Girls, Mother interrupted, her voice trembling. Please, your father. I turned away, walking to the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled, so different from the starlight over my fields. I thought about Father, lying in that hospital bed, his carefully constructed world finally, completely shattered. The cottage is yours for as long as he needs to recover, I said, without turning around. No work requirements. After that, you'll all need to make your own choices. Our choices? Victoria's laugh was bitter. What choices? You own everything we had. I finally turned back to face them. No, Victoria, I own everything you lost. There's a difference. Mother stood up shakily. Paris, I know we can never make up for... But maybe... Maybe what, Mother? We can be a happy family now. Play pretend like none of it happened. No, she whispered, but maybe we can try to understand each other. Finally. I looked at them, my proud, broken family, and felt the weight of victory turn to ashes in my mouth. Understanding, I said quietly, might be the hardest work of all. The Agricultural Innovation Festival transformed our main fields into a showcase of achievement. Hundreds of people milled about, examining our sustainable farming techniques, advanced hydroponics, and solar integration systems. Press cameras flashed as the governor toured our facilities. Ms. Thornton, a reporter called out, how does it feel to be named Entrepreneur of the Year? I caught sight of my family standing at the back of the crowd. Father, still recovering but standing straighter now. Mother trying to blend in despite her designer sunglasses, and Victoria, arms crossed, watching everything with unreadable eyes. It feels like validation, I answered, turning back to the reporter. Not for me, but for everyone who's ever been told their dreams were too small, too dirty, or too beneath them. The crowd moved toward the main stage for my acceptance speech. Quinton squeezed my hand before I stepped up to the podium. 10 years ago, I began, someone very close to me said I was throwing my life away by choosing to work the land. They said I was embarrassing my family by marrying a farmer, that I would never amount to anything playing in the dirt. I saw Mother flinch in the audience. What they didn't understand was that soil, real, living soil, holds more value than any stock portfolio. While paper fortunes vanish overnight, the land endures. While artificial wealth crumbles, innovation grows. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. Today, our sustainable agricultural methods feed thousands. Our research helps farmers across the country adapt to climate change. And yes, we've built financial success, not through market manipulation or empty promises, but through real, tangible value. The governor nodded approvingly from the front row. To anyone who's been told their dreams are too small, too practical, or too beneath them, I say this: build anyway. Build something real. Because at the end of the day, you can't eat status, you can't drink privilege. The only thing that matters is what you create with your own hands, your own mind, and your own integrity. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped down, Emerson rushed up with exciting news about our latest soil regeneration results, but my eyes were fixed on my family making their way through the crowd. "Quite a speech," Father said when they reached me. His voice was neutral, but something had changed in his eyes. "Did you mean all that?" Victoria demanded. "About building something real?" "Every word." "Then why make us work like common labourers? Why humiliate us?" "Because you needed to learn what common really means," I replied. "Those labourers you look down on, they're the ones who build everything real in this world." Mother removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. "We were wrong about you, Paris. So terribly wrong." "I know. But this revenge," she gestured around at the festival, the crowds, the empire I'd built. "Was it worth it?" I looked at my family, really looked at them. Father, humbled but somehow more dignified in his simple clothes. Mother, stripped of her artificial polish, but finally seeing clearly. Victoria, angry, but beginning to understand. "This was never about revenge," I said quietly. "This was about building something that would last, something true." "And we're not part of it," Victoria concluded bitterly. "That's your choice," I replied. "You can stay, learn, contribute, build something real of your own, or you can leave, try to rebuild your old life somewhere else, but you can't go back to pretending anymore." The governor was approaching, likely for a photo opportunity. Before I turned to greet her, I looked at my family one last time. "The cottage is yours until Father's fully recovered. After that, you need to decide, are you ready to build something real, or are you still just playing at life?" Later that evening, as the festival wound down, I found Father sitting alone by the hydroponics display. "Your mother and sister are packing," he said without looking at me. "Leaving already?" "Victoria is. Your mother, she's thinking about staying, learning, if you'll let her." I sat beside him. "And you?" He ran his hand along one of the hydroponic tubes, feeling the life-giving water flow within. "I spent my whole life chasing paper wealth, artificial status, never built anything real." He finally met my eyes. "Think you could use an apprentice groundskeeper?" For the first time since they'd arrived on my doorstep, I felt something crack in my carefully constructed walls. "The work's not easy," I warned. He smiled slightly. "Nothing real ever is." As the sun set over my empire of dirt and innovation, I watched the festival lights twinkle like stars across the fields. Tomorrow, Victoria would leave, trying to reconstruct her artificial world somewhere else. Mother would begin her hesitant journey toward understanding, and Father would take his first real steps toward building something true. Not a perfect ending, perhaps, but maybe something real was beginning. Victoria stood at my office door, a small suitcase at her feet. "I've called a car," she said. "It'll be here in an hour." I nodded, continuing to review soil analysis reports. Let her wait for an acknowledgement. "Aren't you going to try to stop me?" she finally asked. "Why would I? This is your choice." She stepped into the office, her designer clothes looking oddly out of place now. Mother's really staying, isn't she? She starts training with Emerson tomorrow, basic soil chemistry, and Father's becoming a groundskeeper. She shook her head. "How did this happen? How did you become this?" I set down my papers. "I didn't become anything, Victoria. I built it, day by day, decision by decision, the same way you built your life on appearances and borrowed status." "I could have been more," she whispered, almost to herself. "You still can be." "What? Working for my little sister? Being reminded every day how wrong I was?" "No," I stood up. "Building something of your own, something real." She laughed bitterly. "With what? Raphael took everything." "Not everything." I pulled a file from my desk. "You have a business degree you never used, experience in event planning, even if it was just charity galas, and—" I opened the file. "There's an agricultural tourism company looking for a regional director." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you have choices, real ones, not just running back to the artificial world you came from." "Why would you help me, after everything?" I walked to the window, looking out at the fields where Mother was taking her first lesson with Emerson. "Because revenge wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be. But building something, that fills you up inside." Victoria joined me at the window. We watched in silence as Mother earnestly took notes while Emerson explained something about soil composition. "She looks different," Victoria said quietly. "She looks real." The door opened and Father came in, dirt on his work clothes, a quiet pride in his bearing that his expensive suits had never given him. "The new irrigation system is installed in Sector 4, he reported, then noticed Victoria's suitcase. "You're leaving?" "Can't stay here," she said. "I can't be— this." "This?" He gestured to his work clothes. "Happy? Purposeful?" "I need to find my own way." I handed her the file. "Then make it a real one this time." She took it, hesitated, then hugged me, the first real hug we'd shared in years. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything." "I know." After she left, I walked the fields with Father, inspecting the new irrigation system. "She'll be back," he said confidently. "Maybe, when she's ready to build something real." "Like you did." He stopped, looking over the thriving empire that had grown from the dirt he once despised. "I never said it properly, but I'm proud of you, Paris." "I don't need your pride anymore," I replied honestly, "but I appreciate your respect." We reached the main greenhouse, where Mother was still deep in conversation with Emerson, her face animated as she learned about microorganisms and soil health. "She's different too," Father observed. "We all are." Quinton found us later at the cottage, sharing a simple dinner. No crystal glasses, no silver service, just honest food and real conversation. "Victoria got to the airport safely," he reported, "and the agricultural tourism company is interested in interviewing her." Mother looked up hopefully. "She's considering it." "She's considering reality," I corrected. Finally, that night, standing on our porch with Quinton, I watched the stars emerge over our fields. The same stars that had witnessed my humiliation at Victoria's wedding now shone down on my triumph. But it wasn't the triumph I'd expected. "You know what's funny?" I said to Quinton. "I thought owning the valley would be enough, that making them work for me would feel like justice. But watching them choose to change, That's better than revenge." He pulled me close. "So what now?" I thought about Mother studying soil chemistry with genuine interest, about Father finding dignity in honest work, about Victoria taking her first tentative steps toward building something real. "Now we keep building," I said, not to prove anything anymore, but because it's who we are. The night air carried the scent of earth and growing things. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes called to each other across the valley. My valley. But ownership wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was what grew here. Crops, innovation, and maybe, finally, truth. They had shown up expecting pity, but found power instead. Not the artificial power they once wielded, but the real power that comes from creating something true. And in the end, that was better than any revenge I could have planned. Because dirt, honest dirt, never lies. And neither do the people who finally learn to build with it.